16 Minutes of Care is a podcast based on the CARE principles, a strategic framework that reveals how brands create impact by caring and, as a result, grow their business. In each episode, Isabel welcomes a company executive who explains how care has helped their business grow successfully and sustainably.
Welcome back. 16 Minutes of Care with Bart van Olphen. He's the CEO and founder of a Dutch company called Fishtails, but they are Dutch, but they are globally a good and great success. Bart, you let me get straight into the core of who you are and in the core of your business strategy. You really want to lead by example. That was very important, or that is very important for you. Can you explain why? What is your drive?
Well, so what you need to realize is that the seafood industry is a very traditional, not moving industry. And this authenticity has its charm, but it also is, well, it's the opposite way, what I believe, how we should move towards the future. We need to change. So, and I think, so my aim is to make impact. So it started with traveling for 10, 15 years with all these amazing sustainable fishing communities. And where I created like content and media and basically a platform for these fishing communities, trying to create awareness with the consumer. But the real question of the fishermen, or the real demand was, could you please help us creating a platform for our products? Which was the start of the company at the end. So with them, if we can create this awareness, and we only can do that by making impact, and to make impact you need to have a certain base distribution. So a rapid growth is really important to make impact. But as soon as we have realized this first step, where other companies, other brands can see that consumers are moving, are demanding, and I can assure you they are, especially the younger generation, they need to make the change. We basically force them to change. So we give the right example, have a little market share, and the companies with a bigger market share, well, it's going this way, or don't exist anymore in the future.
Yeah, exactly. You only work with these small, local, authentic fisheries, but around the globe, because your products, your fish comes from really everywhere. You said there are still enough, 90-something% of small fisheries, you just said, I forgot the number, 98% or something of smaller fisheries?
So there are 3.5 million fishing vessels in the world.
Yes.
1.7% is classified as large scale. So 98.3% is small scale, but 90%, well, even more than 90% is based in developing countries.
In developing countries. And this is where you really source, and where you find these fisheries, and where you source the fish.
Well, maybe that's an important but we have more concentrated the last years on tuna. Reason why, so in the beginning we were telling, because how it naturally started with all these different fishing communities I visited, we all love to have you all on this platform. So I was telling so many different stories, different species, different fisheries from different cultures, from different countries, that while telling this to the consumers, when we started with the products too, it was a lot of information, especially on a quite complicated subject. Then I thought, okay, if we would focus as a company more on this particular species, where we all know that this species has it very difficult, which is tuna. Then, okay, tuna. We go one step further, canned tuna. And then we really thought we with this canned tuna, there's where we really can make this first change. And if we can change the world of canned tuna, we can change Every other species, every other product. The world of canned tuna is $8.5 billion in the world. 25%, that was also the reason to go to America, is consumed in America. It's the number one consumed fish product in America, but also in the Netherlands, for example. I'm not sure about Belgium. 90% is from a non-sustainable source, 90. So we wanted to change that subject.
And when you say, just to understand, non-sustainable source means fishing?
This could be, this is or and from it's sourced from a non-sustainable fish stock, so the population, the amount of fish. Secondly, it could be fished in the wrong way, so massively fished. So per se fishing, for example, in tuna, means that there are huge nets of hundreds of meters, and it's pulled around a school of fish, but within the school of this fish, there is a lot of other fish species. So there is bycatch. Bycatch means that you fish a particular species, which is not the one you were looking for. And then there's another term which is called discards. So you throw away this fish, often dead, or you cannot use it anymore. It cannot continue to live anymore, dead overboard. So, yeah. And then we have mismanagement, illegal fishing. So there are many topics, issues around non-sustainable fishing.
And when you talk about tuna, you talk about tuna that is caught by the rod.
Pole line.
By the pole,
yes, so to come back to your question, so the tuna we source from developing countries. Mm-hmm. But not every single species or product what we do. I mean, we do fantastic salmon in Alaska, wild salmon. We do cornwall for sardines. We do, anchovies from Spain. But tuna is skipjack tuna, which is the most common species we can find in the can, is, well, more or less all coming from developing countries. And we have a fishery, for example, in North Sulawesi. I just came back 2 days ago from this fishery. It's 6 boats, 117 fishermen, MSC certified for the marine biology, fair trade certified for the socioeconomics. So more or less we can say this is the example tuna fishery. This is the example to the world how we should fish tuna for the future. So this is really a developing country thing, and fair trade often relates for us to the developing countries, because what we expect from developed countries is that circumstances of work and life is well organized and well managed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For example, in the Netherlands, a fisherman, I think fair trade wouldn't make that sense at this moment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also there we can improve, but yeah.
You work with frozen fish, you work with fresh fish, you work with tinned fish, canned fish, like you were just saying. When you look at all of them, and I'm asking this as a consumer point of view, what is the most sustainable fish one can buy?
That's a really interesting and good question. So if we divide sustainability in like maybe 4 topics, so marine biology, the fish itself, socioeconomics, the people who are catching it, footprint, where does my fish coming from, and waste, what is the yield of the fish. So if you take these 4 into account, tinned fish by far is the most sustainable, then frozen, then fresh. The process of canning fish is very efficient. You can recognize on the can if you buy it if it's certified sustainable or not. You can keep it for 4 years, so in terms of waste, not in the fridge. The logistics are very efficient. You can stack a lot of tins in a container.
And you can ship it in containers, so
slow
instead of planes.
So, or yeah. But also it's an advantage for the consumer, because even if you live 100 miles off coast, you'll be able to enjoy seafood in a very nice way. So tinned fish is the most sustainable if you take these 4 into account. But challenging is also if we talk waste, for example, more or less. I mean, if you work in a restaurant, you fillet the fish, well, maybe you will leave the bones for a stock, for a fish stock, for a fish soup, but you use 50%. There are chefs right now, for example, Josh Nyland in Sydney, who is using 98% of every fish, which suddenly gives the oceans the 200% potential. You know what I mean? So, or almost 200%. So
what does he do with, for instance, so he makes stock from the bones,
Well, that's the very last part, but he's using the skin, the eyes, even from the bones. He's making a caramel, a dessert. So it's a different way of thinking, and that's what we need to do in this industry on these 4 topics of marine biology, socioeconomics, footprint, and waste. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But tinned canned food in general, not only fish, but in general, doesn't have such a great image. It feels a bit old-fashioned. It feels a bit. It feels a bit from the past.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's changing?
Absolutely. Especially with canned fish, it's a 100% natural product. The thing is, in this world, we consume more than 50% of all fish we consume is farm fish. I'm not saying farm fish is not good, but wild fish does. It tastes real, right? So, in canned fish, almost every single product is from a wild source. It's often oily fish, so pelagic fish. We call these in the industry. So, which is not fish swimming on the ground, on the bottom, but more in the water column. So they swim in schools: mackerel, herring, anchovies. It's sardines, oily, flavor, nutritious, delicious. So
omega-3 and all the fats that humans
and people
need.
more and more like. The thing is, I mean, if you go to the south of Spain, to Andalusia, or you go to the any costa in Spain, or to Portugal, to France, you consume really good canned food. But the thing is here, 20 years ago, we started to buy canned fish, supermarket buys, for the lowest price, which was not a nice product.
Yeah.
So we are not educated in a proper way with canned fish.
That's why you started to do the educational side on your cooking programs and.
Exactly, and this is also, if we come back to the point, what we do different, we source fisheries, and we don't source the product, the species. So if you source fisheries, what you realize, so if you catch a tuna, you can sell it as fresh, or frozen, or tinned, and how can we deal with this in the most efficient and the most sustainable way? I mean, if canned fish, the great thing for fisheries is you can fish it on the peak of the season where the fish is on its very best. You can hold it for 4 years, so there's no need to fish off season, so you can keep the ocean in rest, in peace, to recover again. So advantages for everyone. So this is how I got involved in the tinned fish business, in the tinned fish.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's great to cook with. I mean, the fish is cooked for you already, so it's a different mindset to cook with it. So he has some sourness, some color, some crunchiness, you can create so many meals with it. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I come a lot in Portugal, and canned fish is very big there, so I'm kind of used to it. But I see already the difference in image in Portugal and in Belgium. It's very different because there it's really one of the products they are proud of because it's part of their culture.
It's a delicacy.
Yeah, it's a delicacy. It's part of their culture, and they have so many differences. Well, here in the supermarkets, it's quite a small selection only, so I know how far it can go, and I'm sure there's way more that I don't know. Last question, Bart, on this episode, but I really want to ask you. So care is all about taking care of people and planet, but there's 4 shifts in the way you do business. It's about collaboration, agility, reliability, and empathy. And I would just like to talk very briefly on reliability, and maybe later we'll talk more about it. And you said it already a couple of times. Reliability, our fish is always certified.
Yeah.
How important are these certifications for you?
What you often see is that companies, brands, they more or less certify their own product, right?
Or they buy.
Yeah, well, it's like the butcher certifies his own meat, right? So what for me is the most important, so first, if we source fisheries, the fisheries should be MSC certified, at least, because we go beyond this. But that's the minimum requirement within our brand. For me, it's really important that's independently certified. So I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not the one who can determine this species is sustainable or not. I cannot determine if there is enough stock or there is not. So I rely on the Marine Stewardship Council in terms of fish stock and fish population, fishing method, and the management. And I 100% believe in them, but again, as a brand, we go beyond. For example, for us, a tuna should be caught by pole and line, but also we go beyond in terms of socioeconomics, fair trade. Again, this is an independent organization, and they approve, they accredit if we do right or wrong. And so independent certification is for us an absolute must. Yeah.
It's a very important. Great. Second episode. I'm not done talking to Bart yet, so stay tuned and watch the third episode where we'll talk more on collaboration, agility, reliability and empathy, and of course, care for people and planet. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care.
Want to create lasting impact with your brand while feeding sustainable growth? Check out thecareprinciples.com and see how we can help you. 16 Minutes of Care is an independent production from Isabel Verstraeten, brand strategist, founder of The Care Principles, and author of the book, Does Your Brand Care? Help us reach more companies who are looking for caring and sustainable growth by giving this podcast all the stars it deserves and by sharing it in your network. Thank you and take care.